Hey guys, today I'm going to be going over impermanent loss and comparing Uniswap version 2 versus Uniswap version 3 and showing how concentrated liquidity is different to calculate impermanent loss. So to start, I'm just going to go over the bytes chart real quick. Yesterday, my video was made at this price here at about 95. And as you can see, we found some resistance and we dropped below the central pivot here. It did act as resistance right here, and now we're just accumulating. More importantly is the Ethereum to bytes chart here. And I think it's more important because when we're trading and providing liquidity, we're trading in and out of Ethereum. And the whole goal is to accumulate more Ethereum, accumulate more tokens. And the reason that we're seeing a more stronger looking chart is that the price of Ethereum had a pretty big dip. And when that happens, you'll see relative strength to tokens like this, which gets bought up basically because people are looking at price and not the ratio. So yesterday's video, I was talking about possibly selling this spot here and then providing liquidity here. I ended up not doing it. Gas prices were a little bit high and I just wasn't sure, and I kind of just decided to sleep on it. So what I did end up doing is I did take this liquidity pool out. I took my profits out, and I am planning on putting that Ethereum back to work. And I actually did just start a position today, right in this range here from 23 down to 21 here. It was actually 22.8 is the top of the range, and it's the 21. And I put about $4,000 in. It was about 5 bytes just for this top of the range here. And yeah, I'm hoping. I really just want to buy more bytes. I definitely didn't want to sell my bytes here because I feel like I have a couple hundred, but I really want more. And I feel like it wouldn't have been productive to just sell my bytes and then have to just buy them back here. And, what if it kept going? So I'm just going to keep holding those, and then hopefully I can accumulate more. And the reason why I only did about $4,000 in liquidity is because I always feel like I could add if I need to. And I do want to have some funds in reserve in case we do dip below and reach this support zone here. You never know. And yeah, we'll just keep an eye on that. And quickly, we'll check the volume here. We had $1.2 million in volume. The total value locked seems to be trending higher. Got 9 new holders. Supply 2,383. Market cap down a bit because of the price drop in Ethereum. And all right, let's just jump into impermanent loss and what it is. So to start off, I want to point out that impermanent loss to me, I don't take it. I don't take it into consideration too much. It's not that big of a deal to me. The reason is I'm just using my liquidity pools to find buying and selling ranges and to accumulate and distribute. I'm not necessarily doing it to collect fees, although that's obviously a bonus of that. It's not the most important thing. So as you can see here, a 25% increase is only a 0.6% loss for impermanent loss. So it's really not significant. And another thing to note with impermanent loss is that you only have impermanent loss when the price of the asset you are pooling goes up. So that's another thing. You're still making a pretty significant return. So it really doesn't affect the position that much. And another thing you need to know about impermanent loss is it's just a calculation of the assets that you are pooling versus what would have happened if you just held on to those assets. So pretty simple. And I went ahead and made a chart to compare Uniswap version 3 versus Uniswap version 2. And let's just start by going over that. So first off, I wanted to keep Ethereum price constant to make the calculations easy. So I started off with $500 of each asset, which is 0.13 Ethereum is 500. And for the price of bytes, I start at $100 bytes. So with my calculations here, so I went ahead and put in a 100% increase, which is a $200 byte. And what ends up happening is these bytes, 1.46 bytes, are distributed to the Ethereum side here. And then we get about 0.05 more Ethereum. And your the liquidity pool, which started at $1,000 worth of value, the pool's value turns into $1,414.21. Now, if you would have just held those tokens, held those 5 bytes, held that Ethereum, your pool liquidity value would be $1,500. So to calculate the impermanent loss, you divide 14.14 and then by 1,500, and you get 5.72%. Now you can also just use a simple calculator. These are all over the web. Pretty simple, and it will calculate the impermanent loss for you. And as you can see, with a 10% increase, the impermanent loss is a fraction of a percent. So as I said earlier, it's really not that big of a deal, but it is something that you do need to calculate. Now, this is where it got a little bit more difficult. I went ahead and made a version 3 chart and just used some simple parameters for this. So there's a couple things you need to understand about version 3 versus version 2. And that is, you're calculating something very different. So, and this is the new thing that you're calculating, which is an out of range impermanent loss. With version 2, you're always going to be within range. You're always going to have an amount of each token. With a concentrated liquidity, you can run out of your tokens once it gets to the top of the range. So you get the most important thing to know is the actual impermanent loss. And to get the actual impermanent loss, you need to add the minimum impermanent loss, which is when it's within the range, which in this case, we're going to do from $100 to $110. And then you need to calculate the impermanent loss for once it's outside of the range. So let's just go ahead and start with the minimum impermanent loss. So we started off with the same parameters here, $500, $500. And we went ahead and took the new price to $110 here. What ended up happening is these 5 bytes were fully distributed to the Ethereum price. And it was distributed at a higher price than what it was before. I put it at about $105 average, right in the middle there. And we end up getting 0.26125 Ethereum added to the liquidity pool value. And that's where we go from $1,000 to our new value of our pool of $1,045. Now, if we would have just held those tokens, the value would be $1,050 once we got to $110 price of bytes. And this is how we calculate our impermanent loss, which is 0.47. Now, if we were to calculate that compared to version 2, it would only be a 0.11% for that same range. So we're seeing a 4x increase in impermanent loss. And that's just how you calculate it. And the rest of the impermanent loss is calculated when you factor in that the price of bytes is going to $200 and the fact that you have zero allocation towards that. So now we have a new high of $1,500 if you held, and you're still at this same valuation, and that's where the rest of the 30% comes into play there. And that's it. And I'm sure there's other people who can explain it a little bit better than I can. But if you have any questions, I'd be happy to go over this once again. And this really just goes to my theory that I've been talking about, which is I'm not really using this to calculate impermanent loss or fees. I'm just using these tools to accumulate and distribute positions. You know, I want to be able to accumulate here and then possibly, you know, distribute my bytes up here. Whether or not I make the right amount of fees or, you know, whatever it may be, isn't really important. I just want to be able to accumulate and distribute. A few things that I found when I was looking through and doing some research. I found that leveraged liquidity doesn't necessarily provide a reliable means to mitigate impermanent loss. It obviously increases the impermanent loss. So finding a strategy that is consistently better than just holding the assets that you want to accumulate, that's to be determined. I've been pretty lucky so far with my pools, and I've been able to use concentrated liquidity to gain fees and also gain tokens. But it's really still to be determined, and it does come with the risks. And some of the risks are, you know, how much gas are you using? I just started a pool today. It was about $150. It was at a $200 at one time. It could be $250 depending on the gas fees. So you need to calculate that. And then you also need to realize that impermanent loss is impermanent because once the value of the token gets back to wherever you started, you get those tokens back. So that's the reason why they call it impermanent. If it goes from 100 to 110 back to 100, there's really no loss. It's only impermanent unless you sell it. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's basically it. If there's any questions, I could definitely go a little bit deeper into this. I wasn't really able to dive in deep to how to calculate the fees, and the reason why is it gets a little sticky with a regular liquidity pool. It's a pretty simple calculation. You've got $3 million locked up. Say you have, let's just call it $300,000 of liquidity to provide. You get 10% of all the fees. That's what would happen if you just had a regular liquidity pool. So 10% of all the fees would be, you'd be getting about $1,000 a day. That's a simple calculation. The problem comes in with these concentrated liquidity pools. As you can see here, we've got a lot more liquidity and concentration in these zones here. And to calculate exactly how much you will make when you have more concentrated here, if the price gets down to here and you're providing liquidity here, you'll get more of that. Versus if you have the same amount of money in this spot here, your percentage is a lot lower. And I haven't found a way to figure out exactly how much is in each zone. So calculating fees are pretty difficult. But in reality, you just need to understand that. I guess another thing I wanted to touch on too is the concentration of liquidity. And basically, it's a more efficient way to allocate capital. When you have a regular pool, your liquidity is being provided throughout all of the price ranges, and you have access capital just sitting there doing nothing. When you're able to allocate all your resources into a small zone, all your resources are being used efficiently. and they're not being wasted as long as they're within the zone and you don't have all this extra money here. So that actually does put you in a better position risk wise, because you don't have the risk of, you could have only 10% of your assets that you would normally have to have working for you, and you could just have it in a smaller zone here, and you would still be able to get the same return as someone in a regular pool providing 100% of their liquidity. So definitely take that into consideration. How efficient you can allocate your capital with Uniswap version 3. That's definitely a very good thing. That's it, guys. I really don't have anything else. So like I said, if you got some questions, let me know, and I will catch you next time.